Africa, that the fertilizer market here has been roughly 2 million tons plus or minus 5%. So it really hasn't been a factor of the rainfall in that, during that period we've seen quite a lot of differences in the rainfall.
So if it rains, and this is winter rain we're talking about, in fact I think it's the winter solstice yesterday or today, depending on who you believe, that in the middle of winter you're getting rain in South Africa, which is unusual, is not going to improve the fertilizer sales, with some farmers saying, oh, let's plant more.
Look, it will always do. I mean, this is not the planting season. Typically the planting season would be over the summer period. But any rain is always welcome for our customers and farmers in general.
Rod, the other thing was having a look up north. Many of the farms that might have tried maize in the past, certainly cattle and perhaps goats, have now converted to game farming, which doesn't need any fertilizer. Has that had an impact on your business generally?
No, not at all. I think the volumes here in South Africa have remained quite constant. The volumes to the north of us are still expanding, and there's lots of room for expansion in fertilizer terms. Africa probably consumes 10% of their world's average fertilizer per hectare. So as you can see, there's lots of room for improvement in yields and in general in fertilization techniques.
The chairman of Yara was at the Africa Economic Summit from Norway, and he was saying that, I think he's from Norway, he was saying that they are doing fabulously well on the continent and would like to expand ever more into parts of Africa. I suppose if we were only using on the continent 10% of what the rest of the world are doing, the opportunity must be significant.
I think it is, and we've seen major companies particularly from Asia, looking at Africa with the possibility of investing into tracts of land to develop large estates.
Hasn't that been put on hold though?
These things come and go, and I think there's still tremendous interest, and probably will be a growing trend in going forward, because there's not that many parts of the world where there's additional hectares to be planted, and certainly there's great potential in Africa to produce more food.
No doubt you're also watching Zimbabwe very closely. And it's interesting, we'll talk about some of your longer term bets in a moment, but from a longer term perspective, with this move towards organic food, is that a threat to the fertilizer industry?
We don't believe so. There's a place for organic fertilizer, or for organic farming, and we think that the two can go hand in hand, and in fact we would encourage farmers to use all of their organic waste materials in their farming practices. But I think the ultimate test for organic farming that one should understand is that no farm on its own can produce sufficient organic residues in order to run that farm, which means that they have to buy organic residues, which by definition means that the farm surrounding that organic farm cannot be organic farmers.
Talking about those longer term bets, the acquisition of a company called Zeta Chem was interesting. In Davos at the beginning of this year, the World Economic Forum, there was a lot of talk about water, the lack of drinking water going into the future, and this is a bet that you are making early.
Oh, absolutely. Water is going to become a critical resource in many countries in the world, except perhaps for Brazil, which is blessed with an abundance of water. With the growth in the world population, the demand for additional food, the demand for additional drinking water, water is really going to become a critical resource, and we think any investments into the water area are going to be vitally important going forward. And Zeta Chem is a company which is able to produce some of these water treatment chemicals, and it gives us the ability to treat raw water to turn it into drinking water, and of course to also look at effluent waters to convert them back into usable water.
How far away are you at a company like Zeta Chem from taking salt water from the sea and converting that into drinkable?
The technology there is not suitable for that, because typically that would be a reverse osmosis type of technology. It comes at great cost, but certainly that is being done in many parts of the world, and I think that would be secondary to using as much of the water that you have from natural rainfall and from dams and river collections, as opposed to be converting salt water into potable water.
The other big theme in Davos, it's almost like you were there and listening to what the guys had to say, but before they even said it, is alternative energy. And you've made some interesting investments into Zambia. Jatropha, what is that?
Jatropha produces, it's a plant, it's almost a tree, it produces an oil seed, much in the same way as sunflowers or soya beans would. And any oil seed can then be converted into a biofuel, and in this case, biodiesel. If you wanted to produce the bioethanols, you would rather use a sugar source to in fact do that. So we're studying jatropha. We don't know too much about it, and we have to say that we believe we're experts on many crops, and jatropha could be a very important crop in the future, and therefore it's of interest to us to study it and understand its agronomics and its growing potential much, much better.
These kind of things do differentiate you from most other companies, the fact that you're taking these bets ahead of time. What is it within your organization that brings these ideas forward?
Well, we've always encouraged an entrepreneurial flair, and we encourage our people to take risks and come up with new ideas. And it's probably not that well known, but Omnia has several patents around the world for a number of different technologies. And I think it's really what we do. We like to add value to our business. We're always looking for opportunities where we can actually make our customers more profitable, as opposed to necessarily be selling him some cheap product. So there's a lot of work going into that direction.
It's a fascinating business. You can get more of it on MoneyWeb, or of course go into the Sense side of MoneyWeb and read all about Omnia. Today's top story was brought to you by Europcar.
If you